have a to-do list for today. I've had a rough morning. Writing has been my bread and butter for the last 7 years. To make it my bread and butter, I had to learn not to rely on inspiration and not to wait for motivation to write. I had to train a muscle. I had to learn how to sit down and do the work. So I don't rely on inspiration to start writing. I have days where I am having a hard time getting into the project I'm writing. So I've been sitting here for actually like 15 minutes trying to deal with my anxiety that I feel about my day job, while also trying to get into the right mindset to outline this project. And I thought I'm gonna film once I'm into it. However, I was like, why not share some tips on what I do when I have to sit down and draft, but I don't feel like it. And I feel like I have a mind block where I'm staring at the blank screen or a blank page or a blank wall, and there's just nothing but fatigue. Today, it feels like fatigue. So, what do? Well, first, I have the playlist. I don't always have a playlist. However, when I do have a playlist, I turned it on. So that's what we're gonna do. I have a Notion page where I have all the notes I made about the project. So I sit down and I read. If that doesn't help, well, it's a good thing. We made a Pinterest board. So I go to the Pinterest board I built for this particular project. I look at the Pinterest board while listening to the playlist, which really helps immerse myself into the world. And then we will sit down and look at Plottr. I'm feeling much more into it now. So let's go. In the last vlog, my solo writer's retreat vlog, I mentioned that while I was outlining, I started to struggle with the motivation for the MMC in the present timeline. I think I said that I was like close to figuring it out last week. However, unfortunately, I did not. I did come up with motivation. However, I did let it rest because I felt like my brain was just not braining the right way. And just right now, I'm pretty sure I fucking cracked it. I did some more world building. One of you in the comments suggested looking into Seelie and Unseelie court, so I did that, and then I went into whole like fairy mythology. So we do have 4 different courts of fae, which is super exciting. But back to the motivation. I think this kind of motivation makes sense, where it still makes him desperate, but it also softens him as a villain, because in the original story, he was like an actual like unhinged villain. He tortured the FMC, and I was like, it makes no sense. The redemption arc in book 2 is gonna be impossible to execute if he is torturing her for no fucking reason just because someone tells him, you know? It shows like a weak character, because again, why would he do what his king told him to do if he hates his king? And then why isn't he doing anything to change the situation, you know? I think I'm happy with what I have now, which is a huge win, because at least we have a solid present timeline. Whew. It's been an hour, but we got somewhere. I don't have any more coffee beans at home. I might need to head out to a nearby coffee shop to grab some coffee. Oh, next on the list that I want to do. Right now, my plot notes are a little bit scattered for present and past. So before I dive into Plottr and put the beats in place, I would like to sit down and organize my Notion doc so I can actually see what needs to be in present and what needs to be in the past. Ooh, I'm actually so excited now that I figured out the motivation, because that gives me so many fun plot points to work through. I love when projects start making sense, you know? Okay, let me go grab a coffee. Okay, time for a little update. I have clarity. Oh my god, that's so exciting. I did go through the present and the past in my notes all the stuff that I had brainstormed, and I made some more notes. I even actually have a solid idea for book 2. I know the midpoint, I know the first half of the book, what needs to happen, and I know what I want to do in the second half of the book, even finale, which is huge. Now that the present motivation of MMC is clear and I know exactly what I need to do, it's such a relief. I did some world building because I wanted to figure out the mode of transportation. So my first idea was horses. Then I was like, that's boring. Let's do shadowy horses. So I was like, oh, these kind of, like creatures that leave trail of shadows as they ride. But I was like, how about we add wings? So I did wings. And at first I was like, this is exactly what I want to do. But then I read about Pegasus and I was like, ooh, that makes sense for the high fae, right? To have these kind of like golden flying horses. And then I was like, fuck yeah, let's go. But then I Googled other mythical creatures that fly. And I was going maybe griffins because they're kind of cool, but I did end up being the basic bitch and we're gonna have dragons. It fits into the world because we have 4 different races of fae that live in 4 different lands. So I feel like every single dragon is gonna be native to each land and each race of fae. And I already have 2 kinds and I'm excited to figure out the rest. If dragons are going to be inconvenienced, because I don't want them to be there just for shits and giggles, I might come back to the whole flying horse thing. So now I'm gonna sit down and put all the ideas from the brainstorm doc into the Plottr. I already have some stuff there, as you know, if you've been following. This time around, I'm actually not going to bother with every single beat. I don't know all of them, and some of them might only come to me when I start actually drafting. However, I want to put as many beats as I can, as I have right now, so that when I finally sit down to draft, I'm gonna be able to get into the story a little bit easier. That's the plan for now. I will speak to you if I have an update a little bit later. Welcome to my kitchen. It's been quite a few hours. I actually completely lost track of time. This was the perfect session. Sorry, I'm just preparing my lunch. Okay, so let's hang out. It definitely felt like I was in the flow. I worked through so many beats for the present timeline. I did refine the midpoint, and actually adding dragons actually aided the plot for the present. It kind of added like an additional layer. It's dark, maybe even darker, to be honest. Well, at least the torture makes sense. And now I kind of refined the torture where like he's not just like torturing her like for shits and giggles, but he's actually doing it with purpose and he does it with care. He has amnesia, but she remembers stuff. I kind of struggle with the fact where like how to reveal the truth to him. So I know the second half of the book point where he finally finds out the truth and how that unfolds, which is going to be heartbreaking. I wasn't sure about the midpoint because she has to plant the seeds. She doesn't just want to tell him. And when she does tell him, he doesn't believe her, right? So yeah, I worked out so many cool plot points. So I'm super excited to sit down and draft. I did write a prologue. I kind of took a part of that chapter that I wrote earlier and I refined it and I turned it into like a super quick prologue from her POV in the present before the action unfolds. So happy that officially the outlining process is finished. This is gonna be a very challenging project, but I'm excited to tackle it. I'm not sure now when the next vlog of me working on this particular project will go live. That's all from me. I'm gonna warm up my lunch and go have lunch and then go work. Thank you for tuning in and I'll see you in the next one.